And so the next page, Obama starts strawmanning unions again, something that he likes to do. Again, Obama, he doesn't attack many people, but he'll get his jabs in on unions and environmentalists and the anti-war. Like he'll get his jabs in for sure. And he says, my own views on China didn't fit neatly into any camp. I didn't share my union supporters' instinctive opposition to free trade. So the unions just instinctively oppose free trade. Like, what is free trade? Like there's free trade, like the idea, like free trade is you say that and people, it polls well in the same way that support our troops, polls well. But like, what does it mean? Like, it's kind of a hollow phrase that is used to, like in the latter instance, to suppress dissent about the war. And so you're like, you don't support our troops, you don't support the war. Well, another way to support our troops would be to not have them blow up in wars for oil and U.S. hegemony that really result in the development of. You don't support our troops. It's a way to subvert dissent while using a poll-tested vacuous, empty phrase for that. And free trade is kind of the same in terms of free trade. Like the free trade he's talking about is like the TPP, which was the free trade agreement which he pushed for, or free trade agreements like permanent normal trade relations with China, or the or NAFTA. Like these were, he never did anything to undermine it. He continued, like this is the free trade that Obama's talking about. Things like that. Like those trade agreements have provisions in them that are just 100% corporate giveaways. They're written by corporate lawyers in empty rooms with very little, if any, union or labor representation there, and then they're negotiated in secret in the dark and then shoved through Congress without public consent. Like people don't know what's in these trade. One thing that was in, I think it was in the TPP, but or it's in NAFTA as well. There's provisions in there that say that you can that corporations can sue governments for environmental or labor law also, I believe, but certainly environmental law, which would threaten the future profits of those corporations. And so if we have, let's say Hershey's in Bolivia exploiting water there, and they Bolivia and like polluting in the waterways and everything. And Bolivia passes a law that to a Clean Water Act or something like that. Hershey's can now sue Bolivia, the government, because they're costing them their profit. This is what the free trade agreements are. And so that's the type of opposition that unions have to free trade, or having to be like, okay, free trade, I guess that means that this corporation can now go, manufacture and pay people 50 cents an hour rather than $20 an hour. And then they can sell that back into the U.S. without having any tariffs or anything at all. And so there's totally undermines U.S. wages and leads to the poverty and depression and rise of right-wing authoritarianism, which we saw with Trump in places like the Rust Belt, and total disillusionment with the political system as corporations spike their profits, at the same time exploiting labor, pretty much screwing over the workers of the world and also putting them at each other's throats when really it's the corporations that are exploiting it. That's the problem that they have with the free trade agreements. But Obama just characterized it as free trade in a way that makes it seem like they're Luddite, backwards, people who just don't understand the economy, when in reality they're trying to better it for the middle class and for help workers. But Obama is just going to go ahead and strawman them right there. He also didn't, and I didn't believe that we could fully reverse globalization, like as if anybody is arguing for fully reversing globalization. As in, like, part of globalization is, now you can, like, travel. You used to not be able to travel anywhere, and, now people are able to travel all over the world. Or, there's globalization in terms of, like, cultural influences, are now, like, nobody knew what was happening in Africa 500 years ago here, or vice versa, or this and that. Now that internet, like, there's 100 different things of globalization. Nobody says you're going to reverse all of it. The part that he's talking about is just U.S. corporations going over there and exploiting labor to make as much money as possible. Like that, we can't really do anything about. If they want to exploit labor over here, destroy the environment over there, and then just sell all their stuff back into the U.S. to make tons of profits and utilize our markets while destroying the environment and the world and exploiting labor over there, like, we can't say it. Now he's not going to say that. He's just going to he's going to strawman it as, I didn't share my union supporters' instinctive opposition to free trade, and I didn't believe we could fully reverse globalization. Nobody's arguing that at all. But Obama, like, he can't just say, I think that we just need to prop up U.S. corporations corporations and do massive giveaways to them all the time while screwing over workers. And I don't really care about the third world at all or environmental standards globally, because that would be kind of a tough political fight to have. So he writes just garbage sentences like this, which are total straw men and totally inaccurate, in order to slyly jab at unions, which again supported him, but probably shouldn't have in retrospect. So Obama really enjoys blaming unions for not doing progressive things, and so right here he says, he's talking about climate change. He says, still, key democratic interest groups, especially the big industrial unions, resisted any environmental measures that might threaten jobs for their members. So he's like, these unions, they're always out here undermining the environmental work that I want to do. In reality, like, yes, there is some tension between unions and environmentalists on certain issues. Like, for example, like if you were to shut down all of the coal-fired power plants and then all of the coal miners went out of work, that would be something that the coal miners unions would oppose. On the other hand, any real environmentalist or all the major environmental groups, the Green New Deal, like, it all calls for what's called a just transition, which means that as jobs are lost in the extractive industries of the past that were, around fossil fuels like coal mining, then that would mean that as we transition towards solar power, towards high-speed rail, towards wind power, towards retrofitting like the buildings in the U.S., which is one of the biggest reasons for climate change, is the inefficiency of heating in our buildings. This is work that requires a huge amount of resources and a huge amount of labor, which could be to the benefit of unions and working people. In fact, would be to the benefit to them in the same way that the massive industrialization of World War II after Pearl Harbor was to the benefit of working people. And so there really isn't a tension there, but it's that type of legislation Obama never supported. And it's important for him to, again, paint unions as not only Luddites that are in opposition to, free trade or, want a total reverse, want to totally undermine globalization, is what he characterized them as last chapter, but also they're, not environmentalists. So I got to take on these interest groups. In reality, union membership has been declining for the past 30 years, and the corporations have a much stronger hold on Democratic Party politics as the trade deals and tax cuts of the Clinton administration and the bailouts of the Wall Street bailouts of the Obama administration show. But still, he needs to get jabs in on them as he can, while also explaining why he didn't do environmental things and blaming them for it. So it's really a win-win for Obama to attack the unions, but it's not really accurate.